Hi everyone, welcome to Mindfulness of Uncertain Times Week 2. My name's Gemma, so if you've already checked in with me, hi again, or if you're my friends and family, hi. And I hope you managed to practice some mindfulness over this last week, to do something mindful, and some mindful inquiry and some formal meditation, so maybe some mindful breathing meditation. And if you didn't, that's okay. Maybe just be curious about that, just acknowledge that, and well done for turning up, because you made a commitment to yourself just by coming here today, just by checking in. Just by doing that, you've come with some openness and some curiosity. So whether you've done the last video or not, well done for being open and curious enough to check in with this mindful practice, this mindful video today, and check out what it's all about. One of the things that we do in mindfulness is we try and foster a sense of curiosity and openness and non-judgemental. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about non-judgemental today. So I touched on that last week, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that today. I'm going to talk a little bit about resistance, and then primary and secondary experience, and then we'll also do another mindful meditation practice today, a different one. So we'll do different ones as we sort of go along each week, sort of building on the skills. So if you've done any mindfulness meditation before, you'll probably be quite familiar with these practices, especially the initial practices that we're doing, the sort of the staples of mindfulness, the mindful breathing and the body scan. But we'd like to build on the foundations, so that we can, these are the skills that we're practicing, kind of being aware, being curious, non-judgmental, using those skills that we talked about last week of observe, describe and participate, and just noticing and choosing what to focus on in the moment, paying purpose, full attention in a particular way to the present moment. So I was thinking about non-judgmental, and I was thinking about my experience of mindfulness and meditation, and thinking about some of the experiences that I've had when I first started to practice. So I've been sort of practicing on and off for quite a number of years, and then sort of more recently practicing regularly mindfulness and yoga as well. And I remember years ago when I'd already sort of done on and off some practices, but I'd gone on a meditation course. And I've actually been on several since then, but this particular meditation course that I went on, I remember the lady there, who was the presenter, the facilitator of the course, I sort of had quite a strong reaction to her, the experience I had was that I kind of felt like, oh no, I can't take you seriously, and no, I'm not buying it, and I don't think you're genuine, and these were all judgments that I was having about this particular person and their sort of way of teaching, and sort of in hindsight I can see that those judgments really got in the way of me being able to be open to that experience, to that what actually could have been really helpful. And I didn't actually complete the course because I had such strong judgments about this particular course that I wasn't open. I wasn't able to engage in the process. Perhaps it didn't meet my expectations, or perhaps it wasn't what I had in mind, or but at the time I wasn't able to let go of these judgments. And in hindsight, I can see that I was being judgmental, and that was actually really impacting on my experience. At that time, I wasn't able to be aware of that and to let go of that and bring myself back onto the experience. I wasn't able to realise that was how I was responding to the situation, and that was my internal experience, and not necessarily a reflection on the person or the course itself. So I wanted to just sort of to share that with you. And I think a lot of people, when they come to do mindfulness initially, they have these kind of experiences where they'll have sort of like these judgments, or this is all, how's this going to help, or no, it's not for me, or no, I don't know if I buy that, or there could be a multitude of different things, but these judgments sort of really keep us sort of closed up, and they stop us from being able to engage, and we're caught up in that process, that judging. It's part of what we call resistance. So being judgmental is just one way in which we kind of resist to perhaps either to new experiences, and that could be to many things in the world, or to the present moment, to reality as it is. So I'm going to think a little bit more about that with you today as well. And I want to share with you just a thought as well. So this is just a little Zen story, and I think that it is quite relevant to being non-judgmental. Okay, so the Japanese master Nan gave audience to a professor of philosophy. Serving tea, Nanin filled his visitor's cup and kept pouring. The professor watched the overflow until he could restrain himself no longer. "Stop! The cup is overfull. No more will go in," Nanin said. "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" Okay, so I felt that was quite relevant to the story that I shared, but I think it's also quite relevant to all of us. And we do have so many sort of judgments and speculations and assumptions and expectations, which are filling our cup, and therefore we're not able to be open to experience as it is, or to experiencing anything new, because we're already full. So sometimes we need to let go of that. So being judgmental is one way in which we practice resistance. We resist to experience. So there's many ways in which we can do that. So if we're open to experience, if we're open to something as it is, we're getting in touch with that wise mind. So you might want to just take a moment to bring yourself to wise mind just now. So perhaps just taking a breath in, arriving here, settling into your body. Just allowing your attention to settle, just noticing what's going on with your body. And maybe as you're breathing, just saying to yourself, breathing in, waiting patiently. Breathing out, my mind settles. Breathing in, remaining still. Breathing out, wise mind arises. So if you're at home, you might want to say those things out loud to yourself, or you might want to just say it in your head as you're just taking in those nice beautiful breaths. So breathing in, just say to yourself as you're breathing in, waiting patiently. And breathing out, just say to yourself as you're breathing out, my mind settles. Waiting patiently, my mind settles. Breathing in, just say to yourself, remaining still. And breathing out, just saying to yourself, wise mind arises. So breathing in, remaining still. Breathing out. Wise mind arises. Breathing in, waiting patiently. Breathing out, my mind settles. Breathing in, remaining still. Breathing out, wise mind arises. So if you checked in with me last week, you'll know that we talked about aiming for this state of wise mind. So hopefully you've been able to attend to whether you've been in different states of mind throughout this week, whether you've been in logical, reasonable mind, whether you've been in emotional mind, or whether you've been in wise mind. And remember that wise mind is being able to balance both the value of emotion and reason. So you're able to acknowledge and accept your emotions, your values, your urges, and you're also able to be rational as well. And so you can choose to respond rather than to react. And sometimes that might just be noticing something as it is, and not having to do or change that. So it's not invalidating, it's not trying to get rid of your experience or your emotions. Mindfulness is actually very validating because it is accepting things as they are. So we're not trying to sort of dismiss your feelings, your experiences. It's just noticing that they are, and being curious about that, and also being able to choose where to pay attention in the present moment. I realise the lighting's not great in here today, so apologies if it's gone a little bit dark. It's really, really bright in this room, and I haven't really worked out how to do anything about that at the moment. And I don't really have the equipment to record outside either currently. So just bear with me for today, and hopefully I'll be able to sort that out for the next video. Yeah. So being judgmental. So often, a lot of the time, we're so full with shoulds, shouldn'ts. It should be this way, it should be like this, it shouldn't be like that. I should have this, I should have that, I should have more. It's unfair. That's also a judgment, it's unfair. And with judgment, it comes quite aligned with expectations. If we expect something to be some way, then we're judging it. So there's a judgment of how something should be. If we're having sort of the thoughts, it's unfair. And there's also an expectation that the world should be fair. There's that thought there that it should be fair, and actually that's not really how the world works. And that can be a really painful truth, to sort of realise that that's just how it is. We often have these expectations of fairness and how we'd like things to be, and I'm not sort of applying that to saying that there's not that things shouldn't be fair either, that they shouldn't be balanced. I'm saying that with completely no judgment. It just is. That's just how it is. We might want something to be a different way, but it is just how it is at the present moment. And that's also resistance. If we're trying to, it's almost like we're trying to change something as it is at the present moment. And while there are some things that we can change, that we do have control over, there are also a lot of things that we don't. And we don't have a control over how other people respond to us. We don't have a control over things outside of our own circumstances. There's a lot of things, so by the majority of things in life, that we don't have control over. What we do have control over is our own responses, how we respond to situations, and that's why we do have choice. So you might have this kind of feelings. Well, yeah, but my situation is different, and that could be in either a positive or a negative way that you're judging that. So it might be that you're judging your situation. Oh, well, my situation is better than somebody else's. Or it might be that you're judging, well, my situation is worse than somebody else's. It's still a judgment either way. And whether it is that you're judging other people and their some circumstances, or whether you're judging your circumstances, perhaps you're seeing somebody as being less or more deserving than you. Either way, you're either invalidating your own feelings, or somebody else's feelings and experiences. And that can sort of impact on how we relate to ourselves, other people, and the world around us. So mindfulness is very much about letting go of judgments, and that's not saying that your experiences it's not judging them positively or negatively. So it's not approving something that might be distressing or uncomfortable. It's just acknowledging that it is, and when we can do that, then we can attend to the experience that we have about that within us, which is the opposite to resisting the reality of a situation or experience. So when we let go of judgment of experiences, then we're able to experience ourselves and other people, and also the world around us as they truly and as we truly are. So being judgmental is just one of the ways in which we resist reality, or we resist acknowledging what is, how things are in this present moment. And there are many ways in which we resist or avoid what is. And sometimes we're trying to, by resisting, we're trying to change the outside world as if we have control over it, or as if we have control over situations or how other people respond, or by sort of thinking something ought to be different. Or maybe if we kind of think, sometimes we can kind of get really hooked up in those thoughts and those judgments. It feels as if there's a power to it. If we have those thoughts that something ought to be different, if we sort of follow that way, it might change it. We feel as if we have some kind of power, and often we don't. And of course, there is some situations that we can change, but situations such as this current circumstance that we're finding ourselves in, this current global crisis with the coronavirus, we can't change how other people react. We can't change what's happened, and we have very little power over what's going to happen in the future. What we can do is we can control how we respond. We can take responsibility for ourselves in the situation. Is when we have those sort of expectations, judgments, and those feelings can kind of thoughts and judgments and feelings can lead to a lot of escalating distress, and it can feel as if we're being productive. It can be really tricky to sort of let go of that, because it feels like it's really, really important, as if it's something that's important to me. That's, we can get really caught up in in that fight resistance. And I can hear even in my own voice there that kind of, oh yeah, but kind of that, you're kind of getting caught up in that fight, that resistance to that experience as it is, and we're caught up in that emotion mind. So one of the ways in which mindfulness is helpful is it because it gives us more choice in how to respond. And I think I touched on this last week. Not more choice in what happens to us, or the events around us, including the current events, or even anything that might have previously happened to yourself or to other people. We can't go back and change that. We can't go back and change what's happening with this coronavirus situation. We can't make it have not happened, the same as we can't with other perhaps distressing situations that we have that have happened. But what we have more choice over is how we respond in the here and now, and how we respond to what happens. So an example to this could be, so in an ordinary circumstance, you might feel irritated if your train is late, or if you're caught in a traffic jam, or you might feel irritated if your partner gets home late. In the current circumstances, maybe you feel irritated because you can only get a delivery from the supermarket in 2 weeks' time, or maybe you feel irritated because you go to the supermarket and there's no toilet roll left. So I'm choosing to kind of focus on the irritated here, but this could equally be any experience or feeling that arises in response to that experience. So getting irritated by the train being late, or being stuck in a traffic jam, or by there being no toilet roll in the supermarket, it doesn't help. It's an unpleasant state to be in. And no matter how irritated we become, it's not going to make the traffic go any faster. It's not going to make the train suddenly not be late. And it's not going to make toilet roll magically appear in the supermarket in front of us. So we're left with that irritation, and we can start to have other experiences on top of that irritation, and it can start to build, and that irritation can then turn into anger, which can spill into our communication with other people, which in turn might have a negative effect on our relationships with others and with ourselves, because we might find that we're really caught in that emotional mind, that emotional state, and where we might start to react on that feeling, and that kind of grow that experience. So when we habitually react in that way, it can feel as if there's only reaction we can have in that moment. So if we have someone who habitually gets irritated, for example, in maybe traffic, waiting for the train, it can feel like that's a natural and reasonable way to feel. However, when we look around us, we can see that other people might be waiting with traffic, or waiting for the train, with a range of other responses. And we can see this currently in the situation with the coronavirus. We can see the range of responses that people are having to the situation, both sort of if you're going out into the world, you go into the supermarket, or if you're perhaps noticing people's responses on social media. You can really notice the range of responses. So you can see those people who are really caught up in that resistance, really caught up in that emotion mind, perhaps getting angry at the at the supermarket and displaying sort of aggressive behaviour, or perhaps being rude to the person at the checkout, or blaming other people. It's those idiots, they took all the toilet roll, they're so selfish, or other people don't need it. Why are some people, some are taking so much more, or I've seen this sort of happen as well with things like perhaps if someone's got a particular diet, let's say that somebody's gluten free, perhaps they've gone to the supermarket and they can't find any gluten-free bread, for example. I'm seeing kind of the responses such as again, feeling irritated, those thoughts, this is ridiculous, and then the judgments start to come. The judgments, well, why are a lot of people suddenly eating this? Why are they taking what I need? People are selfish, and that's absolutely a judgment about the situation. We don't know that for a fact. We don't know the reason why that's not there, and so we can get really caught up in those kind of judgments, and that can lead to sort of that kind of prolonged distress and growing kind of emotional state. So when we become more aware that our irritation is not actually caused by perhaps the traffic or the late train or the lack of toilet roll, but it's our own personal reaction to the situation, then choice becomes possible. We can start to ask ourselves, shall I allow myself to become irritated as usual, or shall I respond in a different way? And actually, that irritation, that all it's going to do is cause yourself distress if that kind of is able to grow and grow. So I'm not sort of suggesting that don't have feelings. I'm an emotion-focused counsellor. Feelings are definitely important, but it's about kind of being able to notice that primary original feeling, to acknowledge that, so that our feelings then don't grow and grow, and we're having layers upon layers of those feelings. So perhaps acknowledging that irritation. When we're able to use those mindfulness skills, notice that judgment, and then you're able to become aware and become more aware of your responses and reactions, and choose then to what to do in that moment. You can carry on letting that grow, going bigger and bigger, or you can notice that before it grows and more layers are added, and bring yourself back into the moment and choose where to focus your energy and attention. So a reaction is an automatic, it's a habitual, and it's usually not conscious. That's when you're reacting from that emotion mind, from those urges to sort of say or do things. A response is conscious, it's chosen, it's creative, it's coming from wise mind. So it's that inner wisdom. And then we can then choose how to respond to a situation. So the first step in moving from reaction or urge is to notice what's actually happening. So noticing the facts in the present moment. So it might be, I'm caught in traffic, or the train is late and I'm having an unpleasant experience. Or it might be, I've gone to the supermarket and I can't get what I need. And it might be an unpleasant experience. What we tend to do when we have an unpleasant experience is to resist this experience by looking for a way out. So we instinctively do this as humans. We resist unpleasant experiences even when there is absolutely nothing we can do to change them. But we'll keep on resisting until we become aware of that. And that resistance is expressed in thoughts, emotions and judgments. So it might be thoughts such as, why is there a traffic jam here? This is ridiculous, get a move on. And that could be about the traffic, or not being able to get that gluten-free bread or toilet roll, or any other sort of situation that you find yourself in. And our emotional responses we might feel irritated, we might feel angry, perhaps we feel guilty. So for example, if you're stuck in traffic and then you think, I'm going to be late, you might start to feel guilty because of that. You might start to feel anxious how somebody else is going to respond to that. or you might start to feel upset or disappointed. Perhaps you feel as if you've let somebody down, if you're not there on time. Perhaps you might start to think things like, oh, my children will be asleep when I get home. Or maybe if you're trying to get somewhere or miss the beginning of the show. And those are completely, understandable responses. But they can grow and build layer upon layer if we're not able to sort of notice those reactions. So, for example, I guess with the going to the supermarket and not being able to get what you need, you might feel irritated, you might feel angry, you might feel disappointed. Maybe there's something particular you wanted to cook for tonight for your family or your partner. Maybe it was a treat for someone. You might start to feel anxious. How are they going to respond? I said that I was going to do that for them. You might feel upset. Maybe it's something that you were looking forward to. Maybe you were going to, treat yourself and that was your plan for the evening, and you were going to do something nice for yourself and you feel upset. Then on top of that, then we start to have judgments. So, for example, with the traffic, it might be, there are too many cars on the road these days. The transport minister is useless. These drivers are useless. Why can't other people drive properly? They're all judgments. They're not being able to get what you need. You might have judgments such as other people are greedy. People have taken things they don't need. People are selfish. People are using that and they don't even normally use it. They're just taking it. These are all judgments about the situation. We don't know that any of that's true. All we know is that in that situation, you've gone to the shop, you've not been able to get what you need, and you've had an unpleasant experience. Those are the facts. So reactions tend to escalate. One thought leads to another, leading to more emotions, leading to more judgments, leading to more thoughts. So our resistance to an unpleasant experience merely adds another layer to our suffering that we do not need to have. This can build and build. So I want to just show you this diagram. So this is our primary and our secondary experience, our primary experience and our reactions. So our primary experience is stuff happens. You might get stuck in a traffic jam, a train might be late, or maybe you can't get what you need at the supermarket. Stuff happens. We can't change that. That is just something that has happened. And in response to that, we have reactions, thoughts, emotions, and judgments. And in response to those reactions, thoughts, emotions, and judgments, we have more thoughts, emotions, and judgments. And in response to those thoughts, emotions, and judgments, we have more thoughts, emotions, and judgments. So this something that happened here can grow into something a lot larger, and it can really spill out then into other areas of our life. So practicing mindfulness is not going to stop things from happening. It's not going to stop you from ever having any unpleasant experiences. It's not going to change the world around us, but what it can do is it can reduce the number of layers of these reactions, these secondary experiences that we have. And so this becomes more tolerable. This becomes more tolerable. It's not going to change an unpleasant experience into a pleasant experience, but it can stop the escalation of thoughts, emotions, and judgments, and it's this secondary experience which is optional. Okay, so I'm hoping that you got something sort of helpful from that. It just felt really important to talk to you about resistance and being non-judgmental today. Of course, there are lots of other ways in which we resist or avoid our primary experiences, and lots of other things that we do. So sometimes we might do that by perhaps turning to alcohol, or of substances, or perhaps turning towards becoming reliant on exercise. And that's not to say that exercise isn't good. Of course, we want to look after our minds and our bodies, but it's when it becomes kind of an avoidance and a way of resisting reality, of resisting our primary experience, that can become unhelpful. Another of the way you think about these is sort of trying to distract from that kind of primary experience. So I'm sure you can think of a lot of other different ways in which we resist our primary experiences as well. One thing that came to me as well, and a sort of thought that kind of came to me about resistance was about responsibility. And I've seen so many times sort of recently people talk about accountability, and I find this really, really curious. And myself too, I've been sort of guilty about this. And we're sort of hoping for other people to sort of hold us accountable for things, and I think it's just this current kind of world that we live in where that's kind of what we're used to doing. We've sort of lost touch with having self-mastery and sort of self-discipline, that we sort of turning towards other people to hold us to accountable or to be responsible. And we've forgotten how to do that for ourselves. I can own for myself that I've kind of done that recently in these current circumstances. I sort of said to myself when I first was going to be working from home that I'm going to practice yoga every day, and so the first sort of week or two I didn't. And I've still been doing my regular yoga class because luckily that's now online. But I wasn't doing any yoga apart from that, even though I intended to. I just didn't. And then I noticed that I started to look for other classes online. So I was thinking about, maybe if I signed up for a class online, that's somebody else holding me accountable. I'm more likely to do that. And I became aware that I was looking for somebody else to be responsible for my well-being, rather than being responsible for my own. So I actually chose not to do that. One, because I couldn't really afford to sign up for all these classes, and two, because I just sort of reflected and thought about what sort of self-discipline and self-mastery, and part of that is being able to be with discomfort, and we have to be aware of that discomfort before we can have that mastery and choice. What I was doing is I was giving in to urges to not do, and if I did that with a mindful choice, if I sort of noticed how I was feeling and made a mindful choice, I'm not going to do that today. That's different to just kind of giving in to the urge to not do it. Because I've listened to reason as well, I've made a balanced decision. So I was kind of thinking about this kind of responsibility. If anyone's seen, there's a video by Will Smith actually on YouTube. I think it's been around for a few years now, but he sort of talks about responsibility versus blame, and this seemed to be quite relevant. He's talking about, again, circumstances out of our control that perhaps we have not chose to happen, and that's absolutely right. We don't choose for everything that happens in our lives to happen, and that can feel really, really unfair that we've not made that choice, and we end up being responsible for the feelings that we're left with as a result of that situation. And I think it's a really painful truth for people to sort of accept, is that though perhaps you're not to, use the word blame, that's what the one he uses in the video, perhaps you're not to, though you're not to blame for what happened or this current circumstance that you find yourself in, you're still responsible for the feelings and the responses that you have in the here and now to this situation. I think that can be really difficult for people, and whether that is instantly you're left with anxiety or sadness, or feelings perhaps, or experiences that are quite difficult, sometimes, then part of self-mastery is owning those as yours. They might be you might not have wanted them. They might be unwanted, but they are yours. And resistance sort of sometimes comes on when we're trying to disown those sort of feelings and experiences. So we don't want them to be ours. So I like to think of being like a garden, and like a human being as being a bit like a garden. Anyone who has a garden will know that a garden takes work. It's hard work. You know that you've got to attend to that garden with care. Sometimes you might need to do some preening. Sometimes you might need to do some weeding. Sometimes you might need to provide that garden with nourishment. You might need to water it to help it grow. And you'll know as well that if you have a garden, or even if you have plants at home, you'll know that in order to keep that garden to be healthy and maintain that, if you don't want it to be overgrown, then you need to keep attending to it. You can't just do it once and then hope that it'll be done. You have to keep attending to it, and I see a human as their internal world as well, thoughts, feelings, urges, responses, as being very much like a garden. And mindfulness can help us with the practice of gardening. It is not a quick fix. It's not going to fix or change circumstances out of our control. It's not going to stop us from ever having thoughts or feelings. It's a human experience, and they're a natural response to situations. For example, a lot of people in this current situation might be grieving. They might be feeling sad, and might be feeling angry or anxious, and that's just part of their response to the situation.